France came to crush. Their guns outnumbered Dahomey's blades. Their firepower drowned out even the Mino's war cries. One by one, the warriors fell. They fought to the last breath and still refused surrender. But by 1894, Dahomey fell. The kingdom was absorbed into French West Africa. The Mino were disbanded, some captured, some scattered, some simply vanished. And just like that, the world moved on. Welcome to Omar's Story Nook, where history gets spicy, legends get a remix, and imagination runs wild. Every tale you hear is a whisper of Omar, echoing through forests, bloodlines, and the forgotten breath of battle. This story begins where most would never look, in the kingdom of Dahomey, in the heat of West Africa, in the place where war called and women answered. You've seen the Hollywood version, but long before the movie cameras rolled, long before swords became props and war cries became trailers, there were the Mino. They were the king's wives, but not for comfort, for conquest. Chosen not by beauty but by bravery. Unmarried, unafraid, unbreakable. They didn't stitch banners. They were the banner, marching into death with bare feet, bare teeth, and blades too sharp for fiction. They weren't waiting for rights. They were taking territory. This isn't fantasy. This isn't myth. This is blood and soil memory, pulsing in the roots of modern Benin. Because the women of Dahomey didn't need legend. They left legacy. The year was early 1700s. The continent was tense. Kingdoms clashed for land, for slaves, for survival. In the kingdom of Dahomey, a ruler named King Howek Baja faced a problem. Too many men had died on the battlefield. So he did what no one expected. He turned to the women. Not just any women, the fiercest, the fastest, the ones who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. They became the Mino, our mothers. But make no mistake, they weren't nursing warriors. They were forging them. From the beginning, the training was brutal. They jogged barefoot through thorn patches. They scaled walls of burning cane. They learned to behead with a single stroke. They did not scream when caught. They didn't flinch when shot at. They earned their rank in bruises and brilliance. They swore loyalty not to a man but to mission. No marriage, no children. Their only family was each other and the kingdom. To touch one was death. To face them was worse. As Dahomey grew in strength, so did the legend of these warrior women. Not as ornaments, but as military elites, as generals in waiting, as sisters in blood. They weren't the backup, they were the blade. When Dahomey clashed with the Oyo Empire, guess who led the charge? When slave traders raided their borders, guess who left them trembling? The Minnows stormed enemy camps with carved blades in their teeth. Their screams weren't cries of fear, they were weapons. One woman, legend says, beat through iron shackles just to kill her captor. Another led the charge through fire just to rescue a comrade. They learned terrain. They studied ambushes. They mapped enemy weaknesses by memory alone. And when colonizers came with muskets, the Mino still charged. Face first, blade first, heart first. They marched in rows, back straight, eyes forward. They didn't blink. They didn't break. European accounts were stunned. One British soldier wrote, "They moved like shadows and struck like lions." Many men died believing these were witches. But no, they were warriors, wives of war, mothers of mayhem, and they rose in ranks. Commanders, advisors, queens of the battlefield before feminism had a name. One of the last and fiercest, Nawi, a legend who lived long enough to see the 20th century, old, defiant, and still proud of the blade she once carried. But even fire can fade. By the late 1800s, France came knocking, not with trade, but with conquest. They brought cannons, they brought trains, they brought colonial entitlement wrapped in flags. The Dahomey stood their ground, and the Mino, they stood in front. In the first Franco-Dahomean War, 1890, they shocked the French. They ambushed supply lines, raided outposts, held their own. But the Second War, 1892 to 1894, it was different. France came to crush. Their guns outnumbered Dahomey's blades. Their firepower drowned out even the Mino's war cries. One by one, the warriors fell. They fought to the last breath and still refused surrender. But by 1894, Dahomey fell. The kingdom was absorbed into French West Africa. The Mino were disbanded, some captured, some scattered, some simply vanished. And just like that, the world moved on. Newspapers stopped mentioning them. Books forgot their names. History tried to reduce them to footnotes. But something that fierce doesn't vanish. It waits. In 2022, a film lit the match, The Woman King. And suddenly, the world asked, were they real? Oh yes, they were real. And in Benin today, murals rise, schools teach their names, statues stand tall, arms crossed, eyes blazing. Martial arts programs are named after them. Girls recite their mottos before training. Grandmothers whisper old war songs to children before bed. Their comeback isn't cinematic, it's ancestral. They didn't vanish, they reloaded in memory, in movement, in womanhood. They remind the world that African women have always led, have always fought, have always rode, not for applause, but for honor. They try to write the Mino out, erase them, make them fiction, make them myth, but Dahomey's soil still remembers. So does every girl who dares to lead. They weren't wives of comfort, they were wives of war. They weren't waiting to be saved, they were the ones doing the saving. Their history isn't lost, it's reborn, in voices that refuse to be silenced, in sisters who know exactly where they came from, because the blade they carried wasn't just metal, it was memory. And memory never dies, it matches. This isn't just history, this is Oma's story Nook, where truth whispers between the lines and legacy refuses to fade. Until the next whisper of Oma. Stay listening. The women warriors of Dahomey. They fought, they led, they returned,